If you are not totally amazed at my findings, then you don't understand it. It's the same thing with the topic of grace. When you talk about grace, you have to be totally amazed, and you have to be awestruck. If not, then you must not understand it. To speak to an unbeliever about God's graciousness usually gets little response because God's grace is so routine to us. Any joy in our life is an example of God's graciousness. He doesn't have to give these things to us, and we certainly don't deserve them. Often asked is the question, how could a loving God send me to hell? And the answer, of course, to that question is that God doesn't send us to hell. We choose hell. Hell is where God isn't. Hell, by definition, is where God and His graciousness just don't exist. And given you what you've chosen during this life by your rejection of Him, you get an existence free from Him and His grace. And we're not just sinners. We are debased as a species. We are horrible creatures. The prophet Isaiah tells us that our best achievements in this life are like filthy rags before God. Okay? That gives you an idea about what kind of a standard God has for us. David says in Psalm 51, "Indeed, I was guilty when I was born, and I was sinful when my mother conceived me." There's never been a moment in your life where you weren't a sinner. It's God's grace alone that saves you or saves me. When you choose to trust Jesus for salvation, that's it. You decide to choose Jesus and trust Him for your salvation. That is what triggers God's grace. There's no other option. It's your choice. There's no other answer. There's no other being that can provide you with that salvation and that grace. That's it. Period. Exclamation point. Finished. And so am I.